When people think of horror games, they often picture nasty creatures, limited ammo, or jump scares designed to make you drop your controller. But some of the most memorable horror experiences aren't built around what's chasing you. They're built around the feeling that something isn't right. They create tension through isolation, uncertainty, and a constant feeling that reality itself is slowly falling apart. That's exactly the direction the green light takes. Instead of relying on action or traditional survival horror mechanics, the game delivers a short but thoughtful psychological experience that focuses on atmosphere, storytelling, and emotional tension. After playing through the entire experience, I walked away appreciating what the developers were trying to accomplish. While the game's short length and simplified gameplay keeps it from reaching the heights of some of the genre's best psychological horror titles, its strong presentation and commitment to its mood makes it an experience that's easy to remember long after it's over. So does the green light deliver a memorable psychological horror experience, or is it a promising idea that ends before it can fully develop? So with that being said, let's find out. The green light follows Fred, a man who has become trapped in the kind of routine that many people can relate to. His days are filled with repetition, his job has become emotionally draining, and life has lost the sense of purpose it may have once had. Everything changes during a late night shift when a strange radio transmission leads him towards a mysterious green light shining from a distant lighthouse. What begins as a simple decision to follow that signal quickly becomes a journey that blurs the line between reality, memory, and perception. Without revealing any major story details, the green light is less interested in providing clear answers than it is in creating questions. Throughout the experience, the game explores themes of isolation, desperation, purpose, and the human desire to escape life that no longer feels fulfilling. The story leaves room for interpretation, encouraging other players to draw out their own conclusions about what they've experienced rather than spelling everything out. That approach won't appeal to everyone, but for players who enjoy psychological horrors that values mood over exposition, the narrative succeeds in creating a mystery that remains engaging from beginning to end. If there's one area where the green light consistently impresses, it's the atmosphere. The game takes ordinary environments and slowly twists them into something that feels deeply unsettling. It's not just about dark hallways or eerie locations. It's the way the environments change, the way lighting is used to create uncertainty, and the way every location seems to reflect Fred's deteriorating state of mind. The art direction does an excellent job blending familiar settings with surreal visuals that constantly makes you question what's real. Shadows stretch in unexpected ways. Color shifts suddenly and the world becomes more distorted as the journey continues. These visual choices help build tension without having to rely heavily on constant scares. Playing on the Xbox Series X, performance remained smooth throughout my playthrough. The game maintained a stable 60 frames per second. The controls felt responsive, and I didn't even encounter any significant technical issues that pulled me out of the experience like that. The sound design is easily one of the game's biggest strengths. Distant whispers, distorted voices, environmental ambience, and moments of almost complete silent work together to create a constant sense of unease. The soundtrack is used sparingly, which makes it apparent more and more effectively, adding emotional weight to key moments without ever overpowering the atmosphere. The green light isn't a game about fighting or survival. In fact, it avoids many of the conversations people expect from modern horror titles. There are no weapons to master, no inventory management, and very little emphasis on traditional gameplay systems. Instead, the experience is built around the exploration, environmental storytelling, and a handful of light puzzles that keep the player moving through the world. Most of the time is spent observing your surroundings, interacting with the environment, and following the mystery surrounding the green light itself. While the puzzles are fairly simple, they never distract from the pacing or interrupt the flow of the story. They exist to support the atmosphere rather than challenge the player. What stood out to me most was How the game creates tension without constantly throwing danger in your face. The fear comes from not knowing what's real, from the feeling that the world is changing around you, and from the uncertainty of what might be waiting just around the next corner. The experience is also incredibly short, like most players will reach the end very well in under an hour. That short runtime helps keep the pacing tight, but it also leaves you wishing the game had spent more time developing its ideas and expanding its world. As strong as the atmosphere is, there are a few areas where the green light doesn't quite live up to its potential. The biggest issue is simply its length. Just as the story begins to build momentum and introduce more interesting ideas, the experience comes to an end. It feels less like a full developed horror adventure and more like a glimpse of what could have been an even larger experience. The audio mixing can also be inconsistent at times. While the sound design itself is excellent, there are moments where certain effects or musical cues feel louder than they should, while other important sounds can be difficult to hear. The gameplay is also fairly limited. If you're looking for complex puzzles, survival mechanics, or a variety of gameplay systems, you may find the experience a little too simple. The horror also leans on some familiar psychological tropes that genre fans may see coming before they happen. None of these issues ruin the experience, but they do prevent the green light from reaching the same level as some of the best psychological horror games available today. After completing the green light, I came away impressed with its atmosphere, its visual presentation, and its confidence in telling a story through mood rather than constant action. This is a game that understands that horror doesn't always need monsters or jump scares to be effective. Sometimes the simplest ideas, being alone, questioning what's real, and following something you don't fully understand can create the strongest sense of unease. While its short length, simple gameplay, and limited depth keep it from becoming an essential horror experience, the green light still succeeds in delivering a memorable psychological journey that stays true to its vision from beginning to end. If you enjoy atmospheric horror games that prioritize the story, mood, and psychological tension over action, the green light is absolutely worth experiencing. For that, I give the green light a 3 out of 5. Thank you for watching another review from the best place for independent gaming journalism, the Gamer Section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you'll never miss our latest reviews, previews, gaming news, and hardware coverage. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.